Yes, good evening, dear viewers. Welcome back to The Niche at The Niche 2025 on YouTube, a business talk show that focuses on ideas, strategies, and ways to grow businesses, both small and large. So we've come up a few times to discuss about the innovation that is happening in agriculture, where we saw the chicken cages, which are they are innovated in terms of keeping the chicken away from the stool and feed so that they can we can prevent diseases. We have also discussed about InfoMaster, a web portal that brings together people in the marketplace, giving more information on the products, job seekers, employers, businesses, service providers, name it. So today, I'm Jidia Gasana, as you know, the host of The Niche Talk Show. And I am lucky to have a brother, Victor Muvunyi, not the other Victor that we were together the last time. This is Victor, my brother, who is very knowledgeable in emerging technologies. So as some of the viewers mentioned or requested that they want to know more about emerging technologies, especially artificial intelligence, and Victor happens to be very knowledgeable in this domain. So I was humbled to have him today on the show, and he's going to talk more about artificial intelligence for today. So this is The Niche Business Talk Show, hosted by me, Jidia Gasana, here in Kigali, Rwanda. It is borderless. It is watched across the globe, across Africa, mainly to bring out business innovation, business technology, and strategies to grow business as the revolving tool behind the economies. So today, Victor, I don't want the advanced definition or even, the advanced discussion around artificial intelligence, but I reckon one of my colleagues who was very brilliant, and he always had a book with him. And one day I saw him with a book called Project Management for Dummies. So I borrowed the book, and I felt like a dummy reading it. Fortunately, I'm not that much of a dummy in artificial intelligence, but I'm sure that we, in the people in business or the people who are looking for the opportunities in artificial intelligence, or even the normal users, potential users, would like to know a thing or two about artificial intelligence. So in a nutshell, what is artificial intelligence? Machine learning, robotics? Is it one and the same thing, or, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jidia. First of all, I want to congratulate you for having this initiative. The Niche, I believe it's going to be a platform whereby people can, gain ideas around business, as you mentioned, but you coupling it with technology. I'm seeing it as a very good thing to have. So, as you maybe introduce me, I'm not really that of an expert. I happen to work in the emerging technology space. So maybe to unpack what is AI or artificial intelligence, well, it is intelligence to begin with, but not physiological, if I may call it like that. I think it's a progression of technology that has been happening, whereby we humans, let me start like that, we've been taking into advantage. We've been working with tools to have things done. When the computer space or the computer technology came into play, we've seen, if I may call it, like a progression in terms of the things that the computer can do. Computation power has brought a lot of things, including data right? So we've been having a lot of data. Now this data is being used. It's almost like now making like a full cycle, whereby the data is now going to be used to even give more insights. So that is maybe what I would call like machine learning. But nonetheless, we're seeing a lot of now independence. Now, the computation power is now becoming independent from ourselves. So meaning that there is another entity, if I may call it like that can make decisions, which is different from the normal way that we've been doing. We've been the ones making decisions and maybe using a computer to achieve something. But now we are seeing like that kind of a brain almost at its entirety being out of our human brain. So in brief, that's how I would define it. But of course, there is a lot to explain when it comes. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to how the data is going to be used, how we're going to define that this thing is actually it's now intelligent enough to be able to make decisions. Which type of model is it going to be used? The data that is going to be used to train this model. There's a lot to unpack in that space, but maybe as we continue the conversation, we will maybe unpack some of those concepts. Thank you.
Wow. So what I understand and what I fear now
yes.
is that we humans, we've created this thing, this monster called artificial intelligence or computer, robotics, that is going to end up, competing with us or even doing better than us. So
even we are going to become obsolete, maybe.
So we've made ourselves obsolete in future. So, but again, the superiority of the human being is that they always create something to their advantage.
Yes.
So we are going to increase the speed of delivery. We are going to find out more with more data, as you mentioned. We are going to make better decisions, and we're going to replicate our efforts, because the human efforts are going to reduce with time, and we'll rely on robotics.
Yeah.
So,
in actual sense, if I may not cut you short, it's a whole. We've been depending on our muscle power. Then the Industrial Revolution came, everything was mechanized, but now we're also seeing that progression whereby we are now even outsourcing the brain, right? We're now going to have like something else that is thinking. And it's almost like, it can be two-way. It can be a two-way thing. If you, either way, artificial intelligence is here to stay. We can maybe be scared and do nothing, but I think the better way to do it is exactly what maybe government of front is also doing, by the way, through the AI policy, is really to take into control what is going to be used, how AI is going to be used, how is it going to how we're going to take advantage of AI to increase our GDP. I believe the Honorable Minister, when she was in Davos, she also mentioned about it, like the 6% projected growth of GDP. But also, there is a lot to do when it comes to ethics. So we need to create technology that is taking into account the ethics. That's why I have like ethical guidelines. It's also even a pillar by itself within the policy. The policy has 6 pillars. Maybe we'll unpack them. But there's a specific pillar that speaks about the ethics and the ethical guidelines that AI should, follow. Especially when it is applied in Rwanda. So, yeah.
Yes, I want to go back on that aspect of outsourcing our intelligence, because the human mind is limited in terms of, yes, it can create, but how long? Because the human mind has, let's say, a time limit.
Yes.
Age or health.
Yes.
Or even, learning, after you have to learn a lot. And the human mind is also subject to things like stress, and pressure.
Yes.
So all those, I guess, will be eliminated through the artificial intelligence, because it's a machine.
Yeah.
It will only depend on the battery power or something like that we could control, that we already have controlled. And I want to go also back to the ethical aspect. So we women in the labor market or in the professional world, we don't have a lot of time, or we are delegating a lot of our womanly responsibilities, like home care, taking care of the home. We are really, we are taking that off ourselves to focus on our development, professional. And I see in the news scary things like, the artificial womb that will take care of our gestation period. And this has been already tried and tested. I see things like Elon Musk creating a woman that he will, a lover or something. So I don't know if that is true, but I've come across it in the news. And I wonder, in the movies it's so realistic, the cloning of human beings. Is this a reality, or it's something that is still illusional?
I wish I could say it is illusional, but I've seen a lot of these things as well, and I think the capacity of creating these things is there. The only thing that is preventing maybe people to do that or to go to those extreme points is just the ethical guidelines that I mentioned. It's by policy. Otherwise, the technology has already progressed. It's easy, like the cloning that you've been mentioning. I think
since
back in time when we were learning biology, I think they used to give us examples that a sheep has been cloned. So which means that even a human can be cloned.
They were cloned, I guess, in movies. But I don't know if in reality they were cloned.
I don't think there is. I believe governments. Again, that's a very big thing to believe. But I believe governments of these countries wouldn't maybe allow it to happen. But who knows? The technology is there, so I'm not so sure. I don't have that information. But let's maybe get back to reality in Rwanda. In Rwanda, when it comes to AI, that's exactly what they're trying to do, is really to make sure that the models are trained to data that is not biased. You can maybe have an application, AI application, that taking decisions, maybe to giving out loans, and just because there is the historic data maybe shows like women have been not maybe performing well when it comes to paying back the loan, and then maybe in the future that AI application may have that bias. So it's all about really, trying to eliminate those biases by policy, making sure that the applications that are going to be used in Rwanda ethically checked. They check the boxes when it comes to ethics and ethical guidelines. And of course, this comes hand into hand with our data protection law. All these things are being taken into account. But again, even yesterday, we were having with the UNESCO, they were having ethical guidelines by UNESCO, and we are trying to see how the UNESCO AI ethics ethical guidelines, how do they fit within our own national ethical guidelines.
And culture.
And culture, yes. And of course the culture aspect is also something that should be really also be mentioned or also been taken into account when it comes to AI. Because otherwise we may create, again, as you mentioned, applications that are not relevant to our people or to Rwandans ourselves.
Yeah, thank you very much, Victor. I feel like I've gone back to my computer engineering in Bachelor of Science, Artificial Intelligence lesson that was, the most, difficult, but we ended up scoring because we took it seriously.
Yeah, sure.
So, but now, again, before we go to the economic impact, would you please elaborate for us, the use cases for like Africa or Rwanda, or which areas will be the go-to for the business, for the entrepreneurs, and also the impact in terms of, the economic, social welfare of the citizens or of the people. Be it in learning, health, agriculture, which is the power. It's actually what we rely on in Africa mostly. And as you mentioned, also for decision making in terms of banking, and other sectors. So which are the most relevant use cases?
Maybe let me speak about the use cases here in Rwanda that are being worked on. In agriculture, the initiatives around having like systems that for early warning to help farmers to understand the weather forecast and everything, and to take into account everything when it comes to crops, to the diseases that they may encounter. So those early warning systems, that's a practical or pragmatic way AI is being used. Another one that is worth mentioning, there are some startups, especially, I don't know if I can, it's okay, we can mention them because they've been doing a lot of good things. Digital Muganda, they've been working on, together with the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, of course, the ministry is also helping around that, collecting data in Kinyarwanda for community health workers. As we all know, Rwanda doesn't have like enough health facilities, so they've been working with community health workers to take to the proximity health services to the people, the local people. So these people, when they are coupled with this kind of chatbot that has all this medical knowledge, but in Kinyarwanda, I think it's a very, very good project that can also yield into great impact, or even that can be impactful. It's like really empowering these community health workers that maybe they don't have like all that sufficient knowledge around medicine, but now they are coupled with that chatbot that could help them really give like the right advice, or even prescription and so on. So that is one way to do that. But also I'm seeing a lot of practice application of AI, especially in education. As we all know, I'm glad that you mentioned, like it's taking you back when you are at university. So when we are learning in school, not everyone captures the concept at the same time. So you can imagine having like targeted education application that could understand what are the gaps that you have, and maybe try to cover those gaps for you to understand a given concept. So otherwise, you remember when we were in school, when it was like you would go with it was like you're accumulating gaps. You have maybe a gap or in calculus, then that gap you keep going with it, and some of the concepts around maybe computation becomes a bit hard. But I'm also seeing a lot of things really happening. Even if I would just even mention like in coding or software development. If one thing I remember when we were learning C, sorry to mention C in this program, the niche, was I think the teacher was our professor told us, like, you guys are not learning the structured language. You're learning something. You're learning how to manage resources, computer resources. So that the skill of managing resources, whether it is computer resources, whether it is economic resources, that is a skill that is going to be always needed.
Yes.
And I think that could also remove that fear of thinking that AI is going to replace us. Like, no, we will always be in need to manage resources. If you can use mathematics to manage resources, that's well and good. If you're using AI to manage resources, that's well and good, because as we all know, it's an everlasting battle when it comes to the resource management, if I may call it like that. But there's also other application. In medicine, of course, there is digital medical records. There's a lot of data around that, and we're seeing applications, people really using simple tools, but to detect very other diseases that would otherwise maybe require you to have like very sophisticated machinery, or even have that would cost you a lot. But with very simple tools, you can detect some of these diseases beforehand and then take decision, or even check with the doctor. There's a lot of progression that when it comes to AI and the use of it here in Rwanda and in Africa. But of course, there's a lot to be done as well. I believe you've seen like the US with SoftBank, they are investing 500 billion in AI. That's a lot of money. If you now, what is it that we are going to be doing here in Rwanda? How much are we willing to invest? Because AI is like the progress. It's actually the future. So I think there is a lot to be done in that space, but we are in the right direction. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and that leads me to our next question. Maybe you look at what is in it for the business people, the entrepreneurs. Do they have access to such funds? But that is for later. But before going to that very query, I need to emphasize on the use cases, the emergency that you spoke about. Now, for early warning systems, the weather and how it impacts people like who are in the hilly places, those whose houses are taken down by water. The weather forecast normally that happens is not real time.
Yeah.
So that would be impactful because it's a global issue. There are tsunamis in America and everywhere else. There are fires that break out. So even for advanced economies like the US, I believe they could still do a lot more in this domain of early warning and emergencies. So again, I'm reminded one case where I was serving in an internet service in internet services, and one of our customers had to monitor their daughters, welfare, because they had a sugar problem, and they had this app that was connecting to the dad at his office, and he was constantly, saying that the internet uptime has to be, very giving the real time data to him, because his daughter is not well and he has to supervise even when he's not at home. So how capable do you think the infrastructure that we have in place is going to be, ready to provide this kind of, real-time data?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Again, infrastructure is something that should really be taken into account, because you cannot talk about anything without infrastructure. And again, it's also mentioned in the policy, by the way, like the robust infrastructure, or robust an infrastructure that is capable with enough GPU to run the models. And as you mentioned, latency sometimes can also cost lives. So there is a lot to be done in that space, and we are also even doing a study of to understand the infrastructure that is needed. I think I mentioned the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They are working on that together with all the stakeholders. So we're trying to see how can we even use the data centers that are in place, and then how would I call it? Empower them with AI infrastructure. Okay. So I believe there's a lot to be done in that space, and there's a lot of investment to be done. But as you mentioned, when it comes to access, again, when it comes to access of the data, we're talking about business. We're also trying to have like a data sharing framework, because government still holds a lot of data, because government is giving a lot of services, and these services have been digitalized, as I think you mentioned, Irembo, in your opening remark when we started this conversation. So how is this data going to be accessed by the common person? We need to have like a kind of a comprehensive framework of doing that. So there is the data sharing framework. but also we need also to understand that we need standards when it comes to data, because mind you, when this journey of digitalization was happening, all the services when they were put online, it was one thing that was in mind. It was like, how can we cater for convenience? Like, how can we allow people to get services without really hustling, right? If I make it like that, or without much effort. How can they get them on their phones, on their laptops? But then there was nothing. I don't think there is a lot that was thought about when it comes to the data that is going to be left behind, and how can we put it in the same standards, the same formats, so that this data could be useful for models going forward.
Yeah, I think I tend to know more about the infrastructure and the readiness, because I have worked in telecoms, and I still do, mainly in enterprise services. So I know that the 4G is at countrywide coverage, and 5G is ready. Is ready. I think within the main cities it will be out soon, and we also have the data centers and everything that you've been talking about. We have I think the one particular telecom has placed smartphones in the hands of more than 1.2 million people that were not having access. And decentralized the digital experience to all those people countrywide. So there's all this ecosystem and partnerships, to make this a reality. So going back to the GDP and the economic, what do you call it? Making it a reality, the economic growth. So we mentioned, and I have seen on the news that we are expecting a 6% growth in GDP as a result of AI. So I believe you've mentioned about the policy readiness and the invitation of private stakeholders, the business people who are going to drive this agenda, because government alone cannot do it. So how do we expect to deliver this? And using how aggressive do all those stakeholders need to be so as to achieve this economic growth? Looking back at the journey of Rwanda as an ICT hub, it has become a reality. Though we don't have we have 13 million population. Some countries brag of much more purchasing power, much more wealth in the economy. I mean riches, natural resources. But we have led in this digital ICT hub in the region. So I think this is a reality, and this has somehow made us, made Rwanda be a spotlight, especially for companies that want to invest in ICT or in digital space. They come and set up here in Rwanda, set up their hubs, and go across the rest of Africa to I've seen it happen. So how do we now plan to expedite the 6% growth? Okay,
well, that 6%, by the way, I think it's like 580 something million USD. This was a study that was done just by looking at the pragmatic use cases that could happen within the next future, right? So it would be like these use cases. Then the study showed that actually that they come to that figure, 6%. But as you also mentioned, we are not a very big market, right? And we've seen people coming with their solutions, give them the right environment to try their solutions. We are a progressive country. We are really looking into innovations. So we give them like the right space, about the sandboxes and everything, to allow people really to try out their innovations and their ideas, then expand to wider market. The famous example is Zipline, of course, but of course others we've seen a lot of these things happening. So that is how aggressive I may say that's how aggressive we are. We are trying really to attract a lot of innovations. We are branding the country but also creating capacities. We have a lot of centers of excellence here in Rwanda. So we are trying to also have like the right capacity when it comes to the human resources. We need those people, the right minds, to work with the innovations that we are attracting. But also we're attracting funds. But when you're attracting innovation, you're also attracting funds. So as much as we're not a very wide market, again, I'm not an expert in macroeconomy, but it's obvious that you're not a very big market. But RLB, if you're starting a business, it's 6 hours?
Not 24 anymore.
I think it's 6 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is 6 hours. So, but even if it would be 24, still, if you go in other countries, it's a different story. But also, we try to put all these government service providers to the proximity of our business people, so that they could get, like you have, the famous policy about a one-stop center, having everything on one platform. But also, as you also mentioned about this whole thing of attracting innovation, this is actually it's a strategy that we have, a proof of concept, making Rwanda as a proof of concept. Come, you try your things, you try your innovations, then you expand to wider market. So that is how aggressive we are. But of course, there is a lot of effort that is being done. There's a lot of people. Where I work, I always see like a lot of people really trying to come to Rwanda to start their businesses or to giving us ideas or they're really interested. If you go to Norsken, for instance, you see a lot of young people having startups, having things that they're working that are really eye-opening. But of course, we've also put these types of infrastructure when it comes to innovation hubs. We have hubs all around the secondary cities, just to make sure that this whole progress is not centered in Kigali. But we know that innovations can also come from up country, or not. Let's say like everyone can innovate. So we are giving them the right infrastructure for them to do so, and of course to creating programs that would go hand in hand with those infrastructures.
Yeah. And I think for programs like ours, The Niche, at 2025 on YouTube, this is a business talk show, and at The Niche 2025 on X, it's actually an invitation to all the entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs to look at the digital space, because it is less investment.
It's also less exploited?
Yes, less exploited. There are lots of opportunities, and the risk of loss.
Yes,
is also less because it's really digital.
Yeah.
There is nothing infrastructure. The infrastructure is there in the back end, but what you're transacting daily is on a digital. So I wanted also us to look at. In spite of decentralizing and setting up like Norsken and all these other innovative hubs that will be informing the young people and the youth to innovate. How about the schools? Are they engaged? Because we need to develop the business mindset, the innovative mindset from secondary school level, because now the people that have graduated were expecting to go into the job market to get jobs. So, but the people that are graduating and those below them, we need to, have a mindset change that this is now no longer the job, the jobs are out and we need to create jobs now. So how are you delving into the education sector as you wind up?
Yeah, sure. Those innovation hubs are also in our universities. Even in the University of Rwanda, there is a space, co-working spaces are being created in universities. But I agree with you, there is a lot to be done. There is that kind of mind shift that has to happen. Again, education, there's a lot to be done, because again, we are seeing like this progress in terms of technology that doesn't go hand in hand with the curriculum that is in place. So I think there is a lot of effort that should be done in that space. But nonetheless, there is all this infrastructure that we mentioned. There are also university. We have like co-working spaces at University of Rwanda. But again, you've seen how the Kigali Innovation City, how it is set. They are putting universities in the same space with businesses, so that we could have like those spin-offs or companies that are created by universities. Right? So there is a lot to be done in that space. But of course, we are, again, as I mentioned, we are really on the right path. The only thing that now has to happen is really to make it much more faster. But again, as on the niche, as you said, these are programs that are not even, they don't have like media coverage. Yet they are there to support young people and businesses. Like the Hunger Pitch Fest maybe is the famous one, but there are even others. There are hackathons that are happening. We should maybe, I think it would be a very good contribution if the niche could also really put a spotlight on these other programs that are happening, so that our young people could also be informed that opportunities are there, so that they could take them because they are there for them.
Yeah, so please, the niche is a YouTube channel.
Yes.
Very, very open to cover, innovative ideas for business. And we are lucky that you are also a youth, or, just coming out of youth. So
no longer youth.
we hope that we'll cover more of those sessions together with the niche, maybe at an opportune time. So thank you very much, Victor.
Yes,
we enjoyed having you at the niche, and we look forward to have you more often, maybe bring others on board as well, so that we can talk about these exciting innovation projects and emerging technologies.
Yes.
So once again, viewers, visit us at The Niche 2025 on YouTube, at The Niche 2025 on X, and at The Niche 2025 on our Facebook page. We'll be posting this talk show and other things that will develop over the time. Thank you.